Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Fortinet DFS Tactics show. We've got a lot to get into and I got a lot of splaining to do, so let's not waste any time on an intro. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there. There are a ton of great tools out there for your golf content, but I truly believe Fantasy National is the best out there. It allows me to do what I do, has all the information and gambling info that you would want to have right there at your fingertips. So go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description of the video, there are links to all of my social media. I will be placing my betting card on Twitter after the show tonight. I also posted some research to Twitter and Instagram earlier this week surrounding the winners of the Fortinet, or at least the past winners since the Silverado came, or since the Fortinet came to Silverado. So if you want to see some of that research, make sure you go check out my Twitter and Instagram. And then also I have been streaming to Twitch this week in the mornings, roughly around 10. Couple mornings, or maybe it was yesterday morning, it got to about 11, but I did the Korn Ferry Tour grads. I've done, or that's where I did the winners research. I'll continue to be on Twitch in the mornings. Make sure you give me a follow at Twitch so you don't miss the notifications that I'm live, and I'll also be posting it to social media when I'm going live. This is where I do a lot of the quote grunt work for the show. So if you want to see some of the inner details, inner workings of how I come to the conclusions I do, join me on Twitch. And then finally, we're live. Chat's open, as you can probably tell as I fumble through this intro and such. I want to hear from you all. First week of the new PGA Tour season. What are you looking for? What are you expecting? Are you going to touch any of the President's Cup players that are here this week? There are 5 of them, knowing that they will travel across the country next week for the President's Cup. Are you worried about that? Are you not worried about that? Want to hear from you. What kind of storylines are you thinking? Do you think there will be a first-time winner? All of the good stuff, so join me in chat. So let's do what we're here for. Let's figure out our strategies and tactics for the 2023 Fortinet. And we're going to have a bit of a different show, but we are going to start first with Fantasy National. But you'll see that this is a bit different, and you'll also notice that I am not a mini-me. I believe both settings have been fixed for both web pages and Excel. Famous last words, probably not, but in theory, I've got them fixed. Anyway, I've mentioned all week that I am going to approach the Korn Ferry Tour guys completely in a vacuum, opposed to including them with the other PGA Tour regulars. And I'm doing this because last year I had the Korn Ferry Tour players way too high in my rankings. I had Nick Hardy 5th just because he dominated the Korn Ferry Tour. Now, he did make the cut, but there was no reason for him to be 5th. Callum Tarrant, Austin Smotherman, these guys missed the cut. And yes, it's only one tournament, but they missed the cut. But they were rated higher than Max Homa, than Hideki, than all these established PGA Tour pros. So that's why I'm going to be treating the Korn Ferry Tour guys in a vacuum, and I'll explain what I'm doing here in a bit. P, thanks for jumping on in chat. Hope your week has went well since I last talked to you on Monday. What are you looking forward to the first week of the PGA Tour season? I'm excited. A lot of it being that I have critiqued my method of rankings, so I'm excited to show you that. So hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for jumping in chat like you always do when you're here. But this is my Korn Ferry Tour grad mixed condition model, as you can see, all KFT. What that means is all Korn Ferry Tour rounds. I didn't go to last 36. I didn't go any specific filters unless I mentioned it. I went all the way back to January 1st, 2022 to, I think, September 1st. Might have been August 20 something. I honestly, I can't remember. I think it was September 1st. I grabbed every single round from the Korn Ferry Tour events that are loaded into Fantasy National. There are a few caveats here. Korn Ferry Tour data does not include putting, so that's why you will see strokes gained total bent. It is the best way I could simulate bent performance. We don't know the putting, so if a guy won an event by ball striking it on a bent green surface, it's not going to reflect that he didn't putt well that week. It's the best I can do. But there's no putting. There are no driving statistics. There are also no proximity metrics in Fantasy National for the Korn Ferry Tour. So I have grabbed what I could, especially considering the metrics that we've talked about this week that I think will play at Silverado this week. So I grabbed 20%, or put 20% in all par fours that measure 400 to 450. We talked all week. That is going to be the main metric this week. So of all the Korn Ferry Tour rounds, 20% in that. 20% in the par fives, 550 to 600. I went 15% in birdies or better. I went 10% in strokes gained total bent. Again, as I mentioned, there's no way to see who putts bent well. All we can grab is who played bent green tournaments well. So that's as close as I can get to perhaps some putting performance on bent. I did put 10% in easy to par. The Fortinet tends to be easy. Now, I actually did not have any easy in my final mixed condition model for the entire field, but because there are some data points that the KFT, the Korn Ferry Tour, doesn't grab, I had to kind of finagle and work around some of that. So I added strokes gained total easy, put 5% in opportunities, 5% in par threes 175 to 200. I put 5% in all par fours. And finally, I put 10% in good drives gained. This is the mixed condition model specifically for the Korn Ferry Tour grads, and how I labeled that: any player that played 20 or more rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour, I have included in another spreadsheet. So you'll see that it lists the entire field. Max Homa, Hideki, most of the guys had 0 rounds. Nick Hardy, I think, played a couple tournaments on the Korn Ferry Tour when he was recovering from his injury, so he had 8 or so rounds. This will include everybody, but I'm considering the Korn Ferry Tour grads as 20 rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour or more. Anyway, with these statistics, metrics, and percentages, my rankings for the Fortinet for these KFT grads are as follows. I don't know why that is stuck there. That is very weird. Anyway, it goes Paul Haley II, Zecheng Do, Taylor Montgomery, Austin Eckroach, Justin Suh, Robbie Shelton, Seung Hyun Kim. That's the best I'm going to get, I think. Ben Taylor, Will Gordon, and Harry Hall. I mean, you'll see some of these guys. Michael Gligck had a few rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour. Nick Hardy, I mentioned, been on. Joseph Brandlett played, some on the PGA Tour. So there are some guys that have both KFT and PGA Tour. This is specifically just Korn Ferry Tour numbers that I'm calculating here. So anyway, there's a look at the metrics that I think are going to play well that we could gather from the Korn Ferry Tour and the players. I'm sorry, I needed to mention this. I realized when I was editing the video from Monday that I was all over the place. Sometimes you couldn't see the top of the screen. Again, I had to work or change my settings, so I'm still continuing to figure out how things are working here, but I believe you can see that now. These are, the top 10 of my rookie rankings. I say rookie, of the Korn Ferry Tour grads. I'm not going to consider most of these guys. I think I've went down to maybe Robbie Shelton in even my considerations, let alone putting them in a lineup. I'm going to be very, very conservative in my usage of Korn Ferry Tour grads. So I mention every Wednesday what I'm willing to lose to. This week, if it's not one of these 6 guys that are Korn Ferry Tour grads, I'll lose, and I'm okay with that until these graduates get a number of rounds on the PGA Tour. I'll lose to them, and that's fine. I accept that. But anyway, there is a look at the top of my rookie rankings. If I say rookie, I mean Korn Ferry Tour grads, because there's a few Korn Ferry Tour grads that have actually played on the PGA Tour before, lost their card, and now have it again. But anyway, let's see. There are a couple here, like Ben On is a Korn Ferry Tour grad this year. He's not a rookie. He was on tour, I think, in 2019, lost his card, and now has it back. So there are some players like that. But anyway, there's a look at the Korn Ferry Tour model for the Fortinet. And I'll probably do this for the first 4 or 5 tournaments until these grads get enough rounds. So I'm going to close that out so I don't confuse myself, because it will happen. There's Windfinder. All right, so now let's come to the actual mixed condition model that I've built for the Fortinet this year. We start with 5% in strokes gained approach. It really, really hurt me to not put any more than 5% in strokes gained approach. I feel naked. I just much prefer strokes gained approach, but the data supports that it just needs to be 5%. It's not a big factor here. It's a little bit, but it's not a big factor here. 10% strokes gained around the green, 10% on bent greens, no speed filters, just bent greens in the past 36 rounds. All of these will be 36 rounds, you'll see, and I'll explain this here in a bit. But 10% on bent green performance, 10% in birdies or better. I mentioned Monday at the start of the show that I was going to be focusing on birdies or better because eagles do happen here, and generally the players that are eagling the par 5s are vaulting up the leaderboard. That sounds obvious. Sometimes it's not really the case. Here at the Fortinet it is. Because eagles don't happen a lot, when you do get an eagle, you are making up some ground on the field. This is the metric that is probably going to be most confusing, but at the end of the show Monday, I talked about outliers, and we found a few outliers. When I took away the outlier for good drives gained, it became a very important statistic. And if you remember, I included it in last year's data model, but it had the added filter of fairways difficult to hit. This is just flat out good drives gained, no other filter. So 10% in good drives gained because I removed the outlier and it became a very important statistic, even though I spent pretty much all of Sunday and Monday saying I don't see much on that page view. I don't want to say I'm a liar. I just found or I don't want to call myself a liar, but I found the outlier. I'm a liar. 10% in proximity 100 to 125. Again, this was part of the outlier situation we found. We saw that it was 100 to 125 pretty much from the leaderboards, but then we really dug into it at the end of the show Monday, and we saw that it really becomes important if you take out the 1 year that for whatever reason it didn't play too important. 10% on par fours, 350 to 400. So I mentioned I might keep some percentage in par fours total. I thought about it. There are 3 par fours from 350 to 400. There are 6 from 400 to 450. There is 1 par 4 from 450 to 500 yards. It measures 458. So you can easily see a scenario where it actually falls into this. Now, 1 or 2 of the 400 to 450 will certainly stretch into the 450 to 500, sure. But the majority, 90% of the par 4s are in these 2 lengths. We saw all week how this was the most important range, but the 350 to 400s were pretty important too. So I've got 20% in par 4s 400 to 450. I've got 10% in par 4s 350 to 400. Finally, we saw all week that 3 of the 4 par 5s are in this range. They are extremely important, so I put 15% here. Now, the added criteria that is a little bit new, it's new for me, so if you're a longtime viewer like P is, this will be brand new. I went ahead and instead of labeling, say, a time, say, June 1st to the middle of August, I went ahead and just put the tournaments. Most people, even I, would not be able to tell you, okay, the Memorial was June 3rd, or the John Deere was August, whatever. I think this will be a lot easier and a very quick mental note that, okay, I'm taking, and then you're just talking to yourself, he is taking approach from Memorial to BMW, so the latter part of the PGA Tour season. On Bent, I went back a little further to the Wells Fargo, all the way to the BMW, so on and so forth. And I'll do that for a little while. I'm going to wait and see if there's any feedback, positive or negative. So, please jump in chat, put it in the comments. Do you like seeing, instead of just seeing last 36 bent, fast, whatever, do you like seeing the tournaments that are being included? Would you prefer the dates? I can do that as well. For me, it was just, I went with the tournament. So, anyway. Now let's cover what I'm going to lose to in terms of a specific model flaw. If the par 3s are indeed important, and there is skepticism on my end whether they are or aren't, if the par 3s end up mattering, I'm going to be dead in the water in that regard. I don't have any par 3 metrics here. I also thought about putting birdies are better when it's easy. I didn't, because last year 3 of the 4 rounds played to average, but the entirety of 2021 played easy. If the course indeed does play easy for the majority of the week, I'll be a little weak to that because I don't have any easy metrics in the final mixed condition model. What else here? If driving distance, if greens and regulation specifically are important, I'm going to lose there. So those are some of the metrics that I am cold to, that I'll just lose to if they end up being important. Now, this is where we're going to deviate from shows in the past. Instead of showing you my rankings in Fantasy National and FNGC, I'm going to show you Windfinder, and then we're going to go to Excel. So Windfinder, and I'll reload it for you. I see the same each day. Calm in the morning, the wind picks up in the afternoon. I don't see an AM PM favor. Like I said, it's calm in the morning, like it normally is. Wind picks up in the afternoon, like it normally does. The wind direction is the same. Again, I couldn't tell you if this hole plays downwind, crosswind. The wind doesn't change direction. So everything should be pretty equal, I would think, this week. Pretty equal. So I'm not factoring in any AM PM split or anything like that. All right. So let's move to Microsoft Excel. And I'm going to show you what I have done here. I mentioned all week, love no weather splits. Me too. Me too. That way I don't have to give you some advice that ends up being shit even more than it already is. You don't have to account for how much of a boost or decrease in value this particular player, that particular player, all that stuff. This is my new rankings formula, I guess, rankings model. Here is my overall rank. You can see that hopefully bold over here on the left. The player, the salary. So that all shouldn't have changed. Here's where it gets interesting. And this is half me boasting about being a math nerd and half me explaining to you what the rankings are. FNGC rank. This would be what I would have normally shown after the mixed condition model. That is just pure by the numbers. That's also these right here. So by the numbers, Corey Connors is number 1. By the numbers, Kevin Streelman's number 2, Chesson Hadley number 3, also all that. But you see, Corey Connors is number 1 in the Fantasy National numbers, but he's 6th overall in my rankings because I'm adding 2 more factors now. This course value, if you remember from Sunday and Monday, when I do that color-coded chart, what I call the early look file, it has a player's events, an average finish, and missed cuts. This right here is an attempt, and I will not try to tell you that it's perfect, because this is going to be a work in progress for a little while. But this value here is an attempt at putting a ranking on that performance. So, for example, Stuart Sink, I have given him a value of 2. He has played this tournament once, and he won it. So he's got a value of 2. The lower the number, the better, just like in an FNGC rank. So he's got a number of 2. Another good example would be Denny McCarthy. Denny McCarthy, if you remember, he is 0 for 4 missed cuts at this tournament. He's got a rating of 139 point yada yada yada. That's bad. It's really bad. So you can see he is 16th by the numbers, like I figured he would be, because this is supposed to be a short game course. But he has played this event so bad that he's dropped to 29th in my rankings. Okay, so that is what this value is. It's an attempt, and that's all it is right now. It's an attempt to put a value on prior course performance. And then now in these rankings, I am also factoring in projected percent owned. So that's another reason why Kevin Streelman and Chesson Hadley are rising in my rankings, is because of the lack of projected ownership. So you can see Taylor Pendrith, he's 7th in numbers. He's played the course okay, but he's got such a high expected ownership, he's getting dropped in the rankings some. Let's see, someone else that is getting hurt. Yeah, like Chez Reavie here. Reavie has played this course amazing. He's got quite a bit of ownership, and his ranking wasn't high in Fantasy National. That's why he ends up in 34th. So hopefully this is making sense. And if you are to come by on Twitch some mornings, if you have a question, by all means, or put it in the comments. I'll be as clear as mud when I answer. Hopefully I'll be able to do it through a comment. That's why I'm mentioning to you on Twitch. That way I can bring up the file and show you what's going on here. But essentially, the rankings are a calculation of these three metrics put together. Now, I've put a certain weight into each of them. They're not all equal. So I needed to explain that before we get in any further and you're looking at the numbers and going, what the hell? Well, you're probably already doing that anyway, but hopefully you're only going half what the hell. But with my rankings, my top 10 players this week are Kevin Streelman, Chesson Hadley, Sahith Theegala, Emiliano Grillo, Mark Hubbard, Corey Connors, Patrick Rogers, Taylor Pendrith, Michael Gligck, and Andrew Putnam. Now, Glick's a little bit surprising for me, but if you look across his numbers, he's not really terrible at anything. He's below average in strokes gained around the green, and he's below average in proximity 100 to 125. But he's got a lot going for him. He's top 15 in par 5s of the length here at the Fortinet. He's top 15 at birdies or better in the past, I believe this is 3.5 months. Memorial was June 1st. I just remember it because it was the first of the month. So this is back to June 1st. He's 15th in birdies or better, or 13th, top 15. Top 25 in good drives gained. He's got a lot going for him. It was surprising for me to see him so high in the numbers. He's 17th. But again, he's played the course pretty well, and he's got a low ownership. That's why he's rising in my rankings. So with that, let me sort this by price, and I'll give you what I normally do, just a quick run through of who I like and whatnot in each price category. So let me sort by column E. Don't mind me as I talk to myself all the time. I'm not crazy-ish. All right, so in the 10Ks, you've got 4 players, Hideki, Max Homa, Corey Connors, and Sahith Theegala. And you also see the rankings here. Well, I was low on Max Homa last year and he won, and I'm low on him again. He has not played the par 4s of the length extremely well in the past 3 months. His iron game has not been there, even though he's been a world-class player. Let's just be fair to the guy. He's been a world-class player. Now, he is number 1 in strokes gained around the green, and we spent some time talking about Max Homa and around the green on Monday. So if this is indeed a new Max Homa, we have to readjust because he's never really been career-wise a good strokes gained around the green player. But there are 4 players. 3 of them are common or have something in common, and 1 does not. I've highlighted 3 here. Those are the ones that are traveling across the country to play in the President's Cup next week. And then you have Pendrith and Davis as well, and I'll talk about them in the 9Ks. But in the 10Ks, you see my top player here, it's Sahith Theegala. And I like Sahith Theegala this week. He's only sitting at 11.5%. He really only has one poor metric, and it's the putting, which comes and goes. It's a fickle statistic. So I'm pretty high on Sahith Theegala this week. Number 5 in the par 4s. Top 15 in the par 5s. He's a good around the green player. He is fairly middling at finding fairways. This is mainly finding fairways for Sahith. His wedge proximity, mediocre. It's not bad, just mediocre. The short par 4s, he's but the irons are there. So if the irons actually do matter more than the 5%, he'll supposedly be even better. There's a lot to like with Sahith Theegala. Another reason why I'm so high on Sahith Theegala, I am ignoring any President's Cup player, including Max Homa. I'm ignoring Hideki, Max, Corey Connors, Taylor Pendrith, and Cameron Davis. Now, I've included them in the rankings for you all in the case that you all aren't scared to use them. Then this is how I would use them or put them in my rankings. I'm not going to use any of the three guys or any of the five guys, even though Corey Connors and Pendrith and Davis, those three are very, very highly rated. I'm ignoring them. That's just too much risk for me. Because, again, like John Rahm last year, he played the Fortinet. He missed the cut, but it was just a tune-up for the President's Cup, or for the Ryder Cup, excuse me. I don't see these guys. I mean, if they make the cut, I'm sure they're not going to be upset about it, but I don't think winning the golf tournament is their main priority. Maybe Max Homa is a little bit of a different case because he's the defending champion, but still, look who we're talking about here at the top of the price board, Hideki. Would it really surprise you if he, shot even par or one over Thursday, tomorrow, and then got off to maybe a +1 or +2 start on Friday and just withdrew to get, to fly to Quail Hollow for the President's Cup? It wouldn't surprise me at all, in the least. And who's to say that if these guys do make the cut, they finish the weekend? Because that's a trip, and you want to get prepared for the President's Cup. So this is just too much risk for me. I am out on all of the President's Cup players. So that's another factor that I'll lose to. I'll lose to a lot of the rookie or the Korn Ferry Tour grads. I'll lose to the President's Cup players. I'm just accepting that. So therefore, by default, Sahith Theegala is my favorite in the 10Ks. And you see his projected ownership at 11.5. Honestly, the 10Ks aren't getting a whole lot of use. Yes, Max Homa is at 16. That's a lot. But it's not, Tony Finau at the end of the season a month or two ago. Hideki's at 12.5. That kind of surprises me. Hideki is the lowest of the five for me. I would not go anywhere near Hideki. Connors, I can understand. I mean, he is number one in my fantasy national numbers. He's played this course okay. Not great, but not terrible. So I can understand the Connors love. I'm just really, really high on Sahith. I'm really high on Sahith Theegala. So that tells you right off the bat what kind of lineups I've been generating, since I'm ignoring the very, very top of the leaderboard. But for me in the 10Ks, it's Sahith Theegala. Hideki's a very clear 4 for me. So I'm torn between who to put second between these two. Numbers wise, I think it's Connors. I could also see a scenario where Max Homa just sticks the middle finger to everybody and wins this tournament back to back. So for me, I've got it 1, 2A and 2B, and 4. If I had to split a hair, I would put Connors second, but to me it's 2A and 2B in the 10Ks. Let's move to the 9s. You've got McNeely, Taylor Pendrith, Cam Davis, Davis Riley, Tom Hoge, and Emiliano Grillo. Well, I mentioned that I'm just completely out on these two for the President's Cup. These two are your highest projected owned players, Pendrith and Cam Davis, and I understand why. Pendrith has been a world beater in the past 2 months after he got healthy. Cam Davis, this is the kind of tournament that Cam Davis loves to play. On the easier side, I mean, look, number 1 at birdies or better. Number 6 on long-ish par 5s. He loves these style of courses. So I understand the love. I'm just not going anywhere near it. So that leaves Maverick McNeely, Davis Riley, Tom Hoge, and Emiliano Grillo. And while Grillo is the highest rated among those 4, let me highlight McNeely as well. I'll just actually, I'm sorry. Let me do this so I don't lose my place. There we go. While Grillo is the highest rated of these 4, my favorite play is McNeely. I think this sets up very, very well for McNeely. He was the runner-up last year. He has just a couple of bad statistics, good drives gained and approach. He's a short game player, and he still gets his birdies in bunches. It's more eagles than birdies, but he gets them in bunches. Plays the par fours well. He plays the par fives well enough around the green. Very good putting on bent, immaculate. Now I do like Grillo, and he's been putting better. So that's why I've got a little bit of love for Grillo, but a lot of people do at 14%. So I really like McNeely. I can't imagine that he'll be 11.5%. If he is, I'll be very, very happy. I'll click my heels skipping down the street. I really think this sets up well for McNeely. We talked about Tom Hoge. He is not a short game player. All of his ranking is in the fact that he's played this event very well, and he's not highly projected owned. He's a good ball striker, so the par fives are good. The proximities are good, just because he's a good iron player. I really do worry about his around the green and the putting. So I'm pretty low on Tom Hoge. I'm pretty low on Davis Riley, and see him at 12.5% is kind of a fade for me. He doesn't have a lot of things going great for him other than these very, very short par fours. I mean, the irons haven't been great. He's just kind of lukewarm on everything, and then the par fives have not been good at all. So kind of out on Davis Riley. For me, it goes McNeely and Grillo. I don't like Tom Hoge, but I mean, I might use him in a lineup or two since he's so projected low ownership, but I don't love it, and I'm out on Davis Riley. All right, let's move to the 8s, and we're done with the President's Cup players. They're all in the 10s and 9s. All right, to the 8s, Brendan Steele, McCarthy, Merritt, Detry, Taylor Montgomery, the highest priced Korn Ferry Tour grad, Webb Simpson, Trey Mullinax, Justin Suh, second Korn Ferry Tour grad, Alex Noren, Wyndham Clark, and Gary Woodland. So let me highlight all these two, or all these 4 columns for you. Well, you see that Brendan Steele, pretty high up there. Again, he's kind of like Tom Hoge in the sense that he has played this event very, very well. He's actually got quite a bit of ownership. Same concerns with Brendan Steele that I did and do with Tom Hoge. He is not a short game player at all. And this is a short game course. He's not putt. He is not chipped very well. The thing is, Brendan Steele is a 2-time winner of this event. 2017 and 2018. He won this event at this course. But that was 5 and 6 years ago. Things can change. I understand why some people are gravitating towards him. Again, because he's played this event well. He's a 2-time winner. I mean, he's 32nd in my rankings. Not that he's a disaster. I'm gun shy on Brendan Steele. Wyndham Clark, I really, really like at 8,000. He's got a couple of metrics that you would think you would shy away from. The par fives, the irons. I mean, the short game, around the green, top 20, top 30 in putting on bent, top 25 in birdies or better. Very good at the wedge proximity, very good at these short par fours. There's a lot to like with Wyndham Clark. So I'm on Wyndham Clark quite a bit. He is sitting at a little under 8.5%. Let's talk about the 2 Korn Ferry Tour grads. Taylor Montgomery, he is at 8,500 and is sitting just above 10.5%. A lot of people like Taylor Montgomery. He was number 2, I think, in my Korn Ferry Tour grad rankings for the Fortinet. He's a very solid player. He kind of demolished the Korn Ferry Tour. Him and Justin Suh both just kind of ran away with it. So there's a lot to like in these two. Having said that, 8,500 is really, really damn expensive for Taylor Montgomery, especially when you get Webb Simpson. Now, yes, I understand Webb's very, very, very low in my rankings, but Webb's played this event. He's played it extremely well. He's only 4.5% owned. I don't know. I'm going to throw Montgomery in a lineup or two. I'm going to throw Justin Suh in a lineup or two. But to see them at 10.5% and 9.5%, to me, I'd much rather take a known commodity, even if he's higher owned, like Trey Mullinax, who's coming off a win not too long ago at the Barbasol, or somebody like Thomas Detry, who we have seen on the PGA Tour and compete. He hadn't won, but he's had some high finishes on the PGA Tour. I would much rather be on these guys than the Korn Ferry Tour guys, and that is where my shift is from last year. I was pretty aggressive with the Korn Ferry Tour grads last year. I'm going to be pretty passive until they start getting some rounds. But I do like Montgomery. I do like Justin Suh. So if you want to play some Korn Ferry Tour guys, those are the two that I would recommend, but they're also going to be the most popular. We made a big example of Denny McCarthy at the beginning of this. Again, 16th in Fantasy National, but he has played this event truly awful. So that's why he's getting dropped. Again, the numbers say he should be really, really good here. This is the classic what do you believe more, the analytics or the course form or course fit. Numbers say he should be good. Course history says you avoid him at all costs. So I'm going to use a little bit of Denny McCarthy. He is top 30 in my rankings. There is enough reason to be shy there. We talked about Webb and Trey Mullinax. If you're going specifically just on the putting narrative, then take a look at Alex Noren. But you see he's got a whole lot of issues that I am just not going to go anywhere near him. We talked about Wyndham Clark. I really like Wyndham Clark. I am out on Gary Woodland. So in the 8Ks, I'll probably dabble in Brendan Steele, but I have enough worry. Same for Denny McCarthy. I'll dabble, but I'm pretty worried. I really like Thomas Detry. I'll use Taylor Montgomery. I'll use Justin Suh. I like Trey Mullinax too, quite a bit, because he has the propensity to go low. So I really, really like Mullinax, and I like Wyndham Clark a lot. All right, high sevens. Kirk, Day, Cam Champ, Andrew Putnam, Chez Reavie, Taylor Moore, Matt Kuchar, Kevin Streelman, J.J. Spawn, Adam Long, and Nick Hardy. Remember, Dean Burmester has withdrawn. The one player that's really, really scaring me with these rankings, and this is why I've said that this is a work in progress, is Taylor Moore. If you watch the show Monday, Taylor Moore popped on seemingly every single metric that we talked about. I know it wasn't 100% of them, but it was a lot. And you see, 13th in my, just by pure numbers. I mean, he is very, very good at the majority of these statistics. He has played this event once, and it was awful. So that's why he has such a large number here. And he's getting hurt by some projected ownership. Taylor Moore is the one player that if he does well, I'm going to kick myself. Because based on his ranking, I'm not using him. But he's 13th by the numbers. So if he plays well, I'm going to be really, really upset. I'm going to use a whole lot of four-letter words. And I'm advocating that you strongly consider using Taylor Moore. He is quite a bit owned, understand that. But the numbers say he should be really, really good here. He played it terrible last year. It's 1 year. So anyway, in the rest of the upper sevens, Chris Kirk is okay. Just lukewarm. Jason Day, no. Cameron Champ won in 2020. I can never nail down Cameron Champ at all. Sometimes he'll pop. It's basically when he pops with the putter is when he'll win. When he pops with the putter, Your guess is as good as mine, and if you're able to nail it, reach out to me on social media. We'll become very rich very quickly. I do love Andrew Putnam this week. All of the short game metrics that we looked at this week, he was right there on. He plays the length of the par fours here well. The wedges, great. So I love Andrew Putnam. Ches Reavie, all of his ranking is in the fact that he's played this event well. Taylor Moore, we talked about. No thanks on Kuchar. Let's talk about Kevin Streelman. Number 1 in my rankings. He's number 2 in Fantasy National numbers. He's played this event very well, and he doesn't have a lot of ownership. You see, he doesn't have a red metric in here. And most of these things are top 30. You've got putting on bent is suspect, and he's not the best at going low. He can get birdies. He's not really known for eagles, but the length of the par fours, very good. Length of the par fives, fantastic. Good around the green. He hits plenty of fairways, and he's not the shortest hitter. I mean, he's not long, but he's not the shortest hitter. Wedge proximity, good. Shorter par fours, good. Irons, good. Give me all the Kevin Streelman I can get. Give me all the Kevin Streelman I can get, especially if he's sitting at 7.5%. I don't mind JJ Spawn. Adam Long is interesting. I think I could flirt with a little bit of Adam Long. A lot of it being the wedges, the shorter game type stuff. He finds fairways. So I don't mind Adam Long. Nick Hardy, yeah. We moved to the low sevens. I don't think we really have time to hit every single one of these, and there's a lot of them. So I'm going to highlight a few guys. Michael Gligck, again, 9th in my rankings. I'm a little bit skeptical of that. And that's why I'm, it's the first tournament. This is where I tell you, hey, we're going to be altering these formulas a little bit throughout the season until I nail down what I like about it. This feels a little bit high for Michael Gligck, although he has played this event okay. The numbers like him, and he's got low ownership. Top 15 in the par fives, top 15 in birdies or better. So by the numbers, Michael Gligck should be good. I'm not as high on Michael Gligck as the numbers, as the 9th rated player, but I'll use him because he's there. I do like David Lipsky. There's a lot to like here. Again, he's kind of like not Andrew Putnam. Who was the player that was Streelman? It's kind of like Streelman. He just doesn't have a bad statistic, or at least not a lot of them. He's got one. It's the short par fours, but I mean top 10 in good drives gained. A lot of that being he's a good iron player. Now he doesn't have the level of top 20 and 30 statistics that Streelman does, but I mean, they're still not bad. Top 30 and around the green. He putts fine. The wedge proximity's good. I like David Lipsky. So seeing him at 8%, I like that. Jaeger, Stuart Sink, The one player I'm really, really excited about is Patrick Rogers. And I understand Mark Hubbard is 2 spots ahead of him. I'm really high on Patrick Rogers. He loves this event. He's played it extremely well. He putts bent very, very well. I don't think he's this bad of an around the green player. The par fours, all of the par fours really. 35th in the more important one, 3rd in the shorter ones, 9th in the par fives. There's a lot to like here with Patrick Rogers. So he is a little bit popular at 11.5%, but I'm going to use Patrick Rogers. I'll use Mark Hubbard as well. Par fives, good. Great. Par fours, great. Putting. So I'm going to use both of these guys. That tells you a lot of the lineups that I've been building around with Tagala at the top and these two. Really like both of these guys. Knox, Smalley, not really. Svensson is interesting. Par fours, all the par fours. are very, very good, which is what you like to see. I'm a little worried about these two things. I don't think he's this good of a putter. And with the around the green play like it is, I'm just worried that he's not this good of a putter. If he is, then he's going to be very, very good. I have a little bit of concern with Adams Vinson, even though he's 12th. But if you want to go on the par fours, I mean, he has a propensity to go low as well. The wedge game, the approach, I mean, the numbers are there. I just don't think he's that good of a putter. Martin Laird, Party Marty, okay. He's only 3.5%. He doesn't. It's lukewarm. Like, par fives aren't great. Putting's not great. It's Party Marty. Brendan Todd, if you want to go with putting, take a look at Brendan Todd and Alex Noren. Let's see, a couple others here. Take a look at Matt Wallace. We talked about him a lot in the proximity discussion. He only has one really bad statistic. Now, he only has two really good ones, but the par fives and the wedges, very strong. Take a look at Matt Wallace at 4%. Nothing to sneeze at. I like that. But if Patrick Rogers is my 1 and Mark Hubbard's my 1B in the low sevens, Chesson Hadley's my 1C. Love Chesson Hadley this week. Second best in the field at the most important metric here at Silverado. He puts the daylights out. He can get birdies and eagles because of the putter. He doesn't have really a terrible statistic either. His iron game, which used to be, not a detriment, but it certainly wasn't strong. Sorry, let me move the mouse for you. It's good. He's been very, very good. So let me scroll up for you on that. For Chesson Hadley, I mean, I really like Chesson Hadley this week. Not much more to say. Streelman, Hubbard, Rogers, Hadley, those are kind of my core if I'm, when I'm in the lower sevens. Let's see, anyone else here? Austin Eckroach, another one of the Korn Ferry Tour guys. He's very good. I just think Montgomery, Justin Suh, and another player lower in the 6Ks I would consider before Eckroach, but he's good. All right, so let's move to the 6Ks. And there are a couple of guys that are getting a little bit of love here. Hayden Buckley at 7%. You've got Michael Kim at almost 5.5%. I was very, very surprised to see Michael Kim be 4th in the Fantasy National numbers. But my goodness, his numbers are fantastic of the metrics that we pulled in. Top 20 in the par fours, top 15 in birdies or better, top 20 in all three of these metrics here. Numbers-wise, Michael Kim is somebody to consider highly at 6,900. One of the 5 or 6 Korn Ferry Tour guys that I like, Zai-Ching Do here. He's played this event once. It was really, really poor. That's what's hurting him here in the overall ranking. Let's see. Cameron Percy, somebody else. I mean, he's 15th in my rankings. I mean, a lot of people are gravitating to Percy in the 6s if they're coming down here. A lot to like. Par 4s, around the green. He's played this event very, very well as well. Let's see. Austin Smotherman down here at 5% is getting some love. I think that's as low as it's going for a lot of usage. So let's go true calls fashion. Let me throw out some names here for you. First one I want to throw out at you is Matthias Schmidt. He played in the what I'll call the Euro double, the Barbasol and then the Barracuda, when the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour kind of had those cross events. The Scottish Open and the Open Championship over in England and Scotland. And then, as I mentioned, the Barbasol and Barracuda here. Matthias Schmidt played very, very well. He doesn't have a lot of rounds, so these are a bit skewed, kind of like the Ben Griffin scenario we talked about Monday. But the things that we pulled in, very, very good. Awaken, how you doing? Glad to see you check in. Nate Lashley thoughts, what he makes the cut. He's usually a good DK scorer. Nate Lashley was on the radar for me. He's 35th in my rankings. He's certainly on my radar. I'm a little worried about the short game because it's just a short game course. The around the green has not been good. The putting's not been good, or it's been mediocre. He finds fairways. He hits greens enough. I certainly have had Nate Lashley generated in some lineups. There are a lot of other 6K plays I like before Nate Lashley. And I was just getting to it. Like, I like Matthias Schmidt quite a bit from his time at the Barbasol and the Barracuda. He's played a couple of events. He's played them well. There's a lot to like here with Schmidt. I like Ryan Moore, somebody to be kind of looking at. He has played this event fairly well. He's only got one bad statistic, too. Now, he doesn't have a lot of like overwhelmingly outstanding metrics, but I mean, he is 6th in the wedge proximities, plays the short par 4s extremely well. Take a look at Ryan Moore. Let's see, others in here. The one speculative play that I like among the Korn Ferry Tour grads is Paul Haley II. Yes, he has not had any data on the PGA Tour, but he was first, I think, in the mixed condition model for the Korn Ferry Tour grads specific to the Fortinet. I really wish I could remember. I think he was first. You'd have to check at the beginning of the show after we sign off. I showed the Korn Ferry Tour mixed condition model. But I think Paul Haley was first or second. He's going to be kind of my home run hitter, boom or bust, if you will, for Paul Haley, or for this tournament, is Paul Haley. And then it wouldn't be calls without me going completely down to the bottom of the price board. Again, it's not fantastic. He has never played this event. It's kind of like the Michael Kim situation. I'm surprised by the numbers, why he's 12th. But you look at him, and they're very strong. 7th in putting, 3rd around the green, 2nd in wedge proximity. Again, I'm not advocating you use saying you'll know. But take a look at him, especially if you're trying to go stars or scrubs. Damn, didn't know his around the green is that bad. That's why I was going to fade Connors. So I am fading all of the President's Tour or President's Cup guys. It's just too much risk for me. I imagine they're going to take it like a John Rahm approach from last year's Ryder Cup. Play the Fortinet, tune up, and get prepared. I don't think they're going to be upset. The 5 players are going to be upset if they make the cut. But let's just talk about the highest owned guy, or not highest owned, but highest price guy, Hideki. Would it really surprise you if he went, say, even or +1 on Thursday, maybe struggled to a +1 after 6 or 7 holes on Friday, and he withdraws to prepare for the President's Cup? It wouldn't surprise me. So it's just too much risk for me to do anything with the President's Cup guys. And as I mention in every show, I'll say what I'm willing to lose to. I'm willing to lose to the 5 President's Cup guys. I just am. You mentioned Connor's ownership. Like, I only see it at 14%. I can't imagine it's that low. I would have to think it's more in the 16 to 18% range. Connors is number 1 in terms of by the fantasy national numbers, so I understand why. But you're right, the around the green is truly awful, pretty woeful. He has been better with the putter, and if Corey Connors putts, he's going to be dangerous. And then, what else is there to say? Good drives, approach. par fours, he's the best in the field. But you're right. I'm not there with Connors. Good call fading the Prez guys. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it sounds like a sound strategy right now, and then those 5 end up all top 10ing, and I look like an idiot, more so than I normally am. But that's where I'm at with those guys. I'm not there with them, and because of that, Sahith Theegala is the only one in the 10Ks I'm considering, which I'm very high on Theegala, but that tells you the kind of lineups I'm building. If Sahith Theegala is my highest that I'm even considering, then that leads you to where I'm at. But yeah, so for what you mentioned, Nate Lashley, I certainly had him generated in some lineups. I am concerned, I'll say. He has played this event okay. He's played this event okay. Just I've got concerns mainly around the short game. But thanks for tuning in, Awaken. I really do appreciate it. Haven't seen you in a while. Hopefully your 2 or 3 weeks have went well. That is a look at my rankings. Let's look at some tiers contests real quick, and we'll build some lineups. I'm a little bit over time, but I do want to make some lineups for you all. So, in Tier 1, you've got Hideki, Max Homa, and Corey Connors. I'm going to go Max Homa only because I could see a scenario, since he is the defending champion, where he gives it a lot more, I don't want to say effort, but he would go more for it than the others. Are you on Griot? Looks to be rating out well. Yes, very, very high on Griot, and I'll get to that in the lineup building. Tier 2, Sahith, McNeely, Taylor Pendrith, Cam Davis, and Tom Hoagie. Again, the President's Cup guys, no thank you. Tom Hoagie, no thank you. I don't think you can make a wrong choice. I'm going to go with Theegala, thinking he's more unique than McNeely, but I don't think you can make a wrong choice between these two in Tier 2. Tier 3, Davis Riley, Griot, Steele, McCarthy, Detry. It's Griot, no questions asked for me here. If you wanted to play the contrarian view, take a look at Thomas Detry. I'm pretty high on Detry, but not nearly as high as I am on Emiliano Griot. Tier 4, Troy Merritt, Montgomery, Simpson, Trey Mullinex, Justin Suh, Alex Norn, and Gary Woodland. If you have a strong feeling on either of the 2 Korn Ferry Tour guys, take them. In a tiers contest, I would much prefer a known commodity. That's why I'm going to go with Trey Mullinex. I don't think Webb Simpson's bad either, considering he has played this event very, very well. But give me Trey Mullinex, especially since he's coming off a win a couple of months ago. Tier 5, Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk. Oh, shit, wrong button. Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk, Jason Day, Cameron Champ, Andrew Putnam. I like Wyndham Clark a lot. I like Andrew Putnam a lot. I think it's one of those two. If you're forcing me to choose, I'm going to go Andrew Putnam, but I like Wyndham Clark a whole lot as well. Tier 6, you've got Chris Goddard, Doc Redman, Luke List, Charlie Hoffman, Harris English, Ricky Fowler, and Bo Hostler. And I can sum all of this up by going, bleh. I don't really like anything in here. Luke List is the ball striking, but with this being such a around the green and putting tournament, it's just comical to think about Luke List. Harris English is interesting because he's back healthy. Take that what you will. He could be rusty. Take that what you will. I think he's back to being healthy. I guess I'll take Chris Goddard by default because he's actually played and competed. But my initial reaction still stands. Blech. So there you go. There's a look at tiers contest. Let's try to build some classic lineups very quickly for you all. I'm going to try and maneuver here. All right, so let's build what we think is going to be a pretty chalky lineup, and it looks like they're going about the same way I'm leaning. It's Taylor Pendrith and Cameron Davis. That leaves them, like 7,700 per. I don't know. This looks like the construction of a balanced lineup, so I'm going to try to build them a balanced lineup. So if they're going balanced, Olive Garden. They're going to bottom out at Chris Goddard. Sorry if you see my fingers typing here. Again, like I said, I changed some of the settings. Pendrith, Cam Davis, Chris Goddard. That leaves them, in that magic 8,000, 79, 78 area here. Let's go Trey Mullinex as their third. That leaves them 76. So, they could go, Mark Hubbard or Patrick Rogers. It leaves them 79. Anyone terribly popular there? No. Taylor Moore's getting a little bit of love here. So, again, that's a crude look at a balanced lineup, leaving 300 on the table. Very damn chalky at 15.3%. You're matching a little more than 15% of your fellow contestants in a big GPP. If they are going stars and scrubs, they are going something to the effect of Max Homa, Corey Connors, and then they're bottoming out in the sixes. Where was that 6.6 guy? I thought he was in here somewhere. Again, apologies, new formatting. Austin Smotherman's at 5.2. I thought there was a 6. There it is. Percy and John Hose at 7. So we'll say Percy. Let's give him Cameron Percy. With that, they're probably going to have to go again in the low 7s. We used Goddard, we used Rogers, so let's use Mark Hubbard. 75, 76, Taylor Moore, Chez Reavie. It might have to be both of these guys, Hubbard and Rogers, and then it gives them 78, which is again that Chez Reavie, Taylor Moore. There's a look at perhaps a stars and scrubs style build that your fellow contestants are going. So to Awaken's point, I'm going to show you the way I've been going with my lineups, and I'm trying to dance around what I perceive as a chalky, balanced contest. I think balanced lineups are going to be the overwhelming majority of lineup construction. With that, I'm going either Sahith Tagala or Maverick McNeely. I'm very high on both. But then I've been going Grillo second. I like Grillo a lot. Now, the ownership does concern me. I'm not happy with it. The big thing with Grillo is he could never really putt all that well. He was always good around the green. His irons were okay. If he's truly 42nd in putting, yes. If Grillo starts putting, we've got a winner on our hands. I'm not betting him to win outright, but in terms of DFS, I think he's going to be very, very good, and he's played this event really well the times he's played. He doesn't really have a terrible statistic. I mean, the wedge proximity, isn't great. But, I mean, best in the field at the par 5s here. When I say the par 5s, 3 of the 4 par 5s fall from 550 to 600. So all of the importance of par 5s comes in this range. So he's he's the best in the field at the par 5s. Top 20 around the green, top 5 in birdies or better, he'll go low. He will go low. Top 15 in good drives gained. There's a lot to like with Grillo. I really like Grillo this week. And with that, I've been bottoming out in the, Patrick Rogers, Mark Hubbard, but I'm going to use Chesson Hadley. I'm very, very high on Chesson Hadley this week, and he's more unique than those other two. However, Patrick Rogers and Mark Hubbard would absolutely fit in this lineup. In fact, I'm probably going to have to use one of them. I'm going to use Patrick Rogers, even though Hubbard is rated higher. I kind of like Rogers more, but I've got 8,200 per player here. You know, I mentioned Trey Mullinax. I like. You know, he's a little bit more chalky, but I like Trey Mullinax. I like Wyndham Clark. But Matt Wallace, yeah, absolutely. Matt Wallace is somebody that I have been keyed in on this week. What is his price? I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I know it wasn't a lot. There he is. Yeah, like 7,100, top 35 in my rankings. I have absolutely been using Matt Wallace in roster constructions. You know what? In fact, let's do that. I like good shout, Awaken. Good shout. I do like some Matt Wallace. I'm higher on Rogers. I'm higher on Hubbard. I'm higher on Chesson Hadley. But for 4% on Matt Wallace, that's pretty strong. I really like Matt Wallace. And that gives us a little bit more money to play with. Like, I like Thomas Detry quite a bit. 8,100 is Wyndham Clark. If you want to believe, if you want to use the putting narrative, it's Alex Noren. I'm not there, but you have reason to be with Alex Noren. If you want to go with Korn Ferry Tour guys that are highest, Justin Suh, Taylor Montgomery, these guys are a bit more chalky. But, you know, Korn Ferry Tour grads, maybe people aren't on them. So there's a look at some of the construction of lineups that I've been working with. A lot around this balanced build. However, it wouldn't be calls if I didn't throw in an absolute Hail Mary. So I mentioned it in the price board. My Hail Mary is, I think his name is Paul. That's pretty bad when you can't remember his first name. That's when it really is a Hail Mary. Paul Haley II. He is kind of like my Hail Mary for Korn Ferry Tour grads this week. I think he was number 1 or number 2 in my rankings. So if I'm going all the way down to Paul Haley, I'm doing I don't know if it would fit, but I'm gonna try and do like a Sahith Theegala, Emiliano Grillo, a Mav McNeely, and Emiliano Grillo, and try to get all that in, like 7,200 per. Like, this would be a time where I would use Matt Wallace, Patrick Rogers, Mark Hubbard. I used him already, I know, apologies, but like Chesson Hadley and Mark Hubbard is how I've been rounding out these teams. If you want to see just a couple of different names, there was a couple of higher 6Ks. Like Zheching Do is another interesting Korn Ferry Tour grad. Michael Kim. Tyler Duncan I don't mind really at all either. But I like Schmidt, so I'll use Matthias Schmidt. And then that gives me 76. That's the Taylor Moore, Chez Reavie, Kevin Streelman, who's number 1 overall in my rankings. Brandon Wu, I don't think I'm there with Brandon Wu. He is 60. Do you know what he is off the top? There he is. Sorry. 7,000. I mean, he's number 1 for the par 5s. Okay. Again, it's like the Nate Lashley. If he has a hot putting week, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, the form doesn't suggest that he fits this course well. But as I mention all the time, all it takes is a hot putter, and that's why I don't count on putting week over week, month over month, tournament over tournament, because it's a fickle statistic. Like par 5s, best in the field, or tied for best in the field. Top 15 in good drives gained. That's very, hitting fairways, hitting greens. Very good with the wedge, proximities. He's getting hurt in my rankings by the fact that he has played this event once, maybe twice, and was trash. He finished awful. So he's getting hurt by that regard. If it was only one tournament, then perhaps you take that with a little bit of grain of salt and move him up higher in your rankings. You have enough reason to like Brandon Wu. I'm not there for the same Nate Lashley, Tom Hoagie type players. They're just not there. What lineup builder are you using? This is actually my own through Excel. I use Fantasy National whenever I generate lineups to put in DraftKings, but whenever I'm going through my show talking about lineup constructions, I just I bring over my rankings, the projected percent owned per Fantasy National, and then course value. Yeah, absolutely. James, absolutely. By all means. I'm glad you jumped in and are interested in the show. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, Awaken, I'm not there with Lashley. I'm not there with Wu. Good shout on Matt Wallace. He is somebody that I'm considering. So yeah, if chat wants to throw out a couple of names or a couple of players that you might want to try to build a lineup around, by all means, throw them out. We've been going, looks like about 10 to 15 minutes over time, but with chat active, I'll stay. I'll stay as long as you all keep having questions. Looking at a lot of Korn Ferry Tour guys. Okay. So I'd have to bring back Fantasy National. So in fact, let me do that in case you're still tight. And Fantasy National exporting the wrong player IDs for the single day entries. I won't know anything about that. I am a member, but I don't have the capability, I guess, to know anything about that. That would be a Moose question via Twitter. Yeah, but let me bring up my Korn Ferry Tour data model that I had built. So I think it was in the field. And I don't know, I'm not sure if you were here for it, Awaken, but I built a mixed condition model for the Korn Ferry Tour guys as well. I think it's in this page view. Mixed condition model, yes it is. Okay, so again, as a quick reminder, this is gathering all rounds played on the Korn Ferry Tour from January 1st to I think September 1st. I can't remember what I cut off the date as, but I know it's going through the 2022 calendar year. And these are the metrics that I think are going to play here at the Fortinet, with a couple of exceptions. Fantasy National does not gather, Fantasy National does not have the data for Korn Ferry Tour proximity numbers or proximity statistics. So in my regular condition model, I put 10% in proximity 100 to 125. That data is not collected for Korn Ferry Tour events. So that's 10% that I'm having to play around with. They don't collect putting statistics. So the closest I could come to putting is to go strokes gained total on bent courses. Now that's not going to tell you if a guy putt well. It's only that he played that tournament well. He could have just ball struck the shit out of it, and all he had to do was make 2 footers. We're not going to know, but that's the closest I can get for green surfaces with Korn Ferry Tour stats. But anyway, so this is the mixed condition model I made just for the Korn Ferry Tour guys. So 20%. Birdies are better all the things that I tried to bring over from here, and then, you know, kind of moved percentages around if those metrics weren't available. So when I did that, they are as such. Again, this is just specifically for the Fortinet. This had, you know, when we're at the Sanderson Farms in 2 weeks, these rankings are going to be completely different. So just to give you an idea on who I am targeting and looking at for the Fortinet. Number 1 was Paul Haley II. That's why he's kind of like my my Hail Mary or whatever. He was not good at the par 3s, which I don't have any par 3s in my main mixed condition model. Again, this is 5% that I took from, you know, other places that didn't have it. But I mean, you look at this stuff. First on bent surfaces, first in good drives gained, second when it's easy, which the Fortinet has generally played easy, on the easier side as opposed to difficult. There's a lot to like with this Paul Haley II. So he's my you know, kind of hopefully out of left field. Zheng Do has played on the PGA Tour before. He lost his card and has it back, so he's not unknown. Taylor Montgomery, very popular. He ripped through the Korn Ferry Tour. Same with Justin Suh. He ripped through the Korn Ferry Tour. So there's a look at my, you know, say top 10 or so Korn Ferry Tour grads. Like you can see Michael Gligck here. He played on the PGA Tour, but he also had some rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour. So, you know, he's included in here. In fact, let me bring up something here real quick for you all. I meant to have it up, and I did not remember before the show. So I brought all of this over. So this is, so I know the vision skewed, so give me a second. This is this from here brought over into Microsoft Excel. Let's see. Do I have... Yeah, so this is where I was just gathering all the data, all the math nerd stuff. And then here is the mixed condition model. So let me fix that. Oh, was the... did I have Fantasy National on the skewed vision? I apologize. It looks like I did. Hopefully you were able to see the mixed condition model for the Korn Ferry Tour guys. Apologies if you weren't. I can run that back real quick. But I've highlighted the guys that I'm considering. But here is those rankings. So like you can see, it goes down to like 38th and then jumps to 129. That's because all of the players in this range is Max Homa, Corey Connors, all the guys that didn't have a Korn Ferry Tour round, basically. All of those guys are in here. So I believe this is any player who had more than 20 rounds on the Korn Ferry Tour and less than 20 on the PGA Tour, I think is how I did this. I don't remember. This was done Monday night, and I've slept since then. But this is just a rough estimate of the Korn Ferry Tour grads. But yeah, so that's how I've calculated this. So what was your question on the Korn Ferry Tour guys, James? And P, Awaken, anybody else that's chat on YouTube? Carl Yuan, okay. Did he not? I don't know if he populated. Carl, because he's not in Fantasy National in terms of ownership. Yeah. Let me bring up Fantasy National. Like he didn't brought up at all. Like even for Korn Ferry Tour guys. So for me, it's really, really hard to give you any kind of advice, positively or negatively. And this is the first time you've come in and dropped in chat at least. So I hate to give you this kind of answer, but as a statistician, as a data analyst, what I do for a living, like when a person doesn't have data, I can't analyze them. So I just put them at neutral. Everything that I've heard about Carl Yuan suggests that he should be good on the PGA Tour. When you're asking specifically about this event, I hate to do it, but I have to go because he doesn't have any data that I can look at from Fantasy National, and that's where I'm a member. I am always going to advocate Fantasy National. It allows me to do what I do and build these models and all that stuff. But anything that I'm going to suggest to you on Carl Yuan is, I don't want to call it hearsay, just what I've heard from others in the industry. I would not be able to give you a full-fledged answer from a statistical mind. Apologies for that. But I would rather tell you honestly that I don't have it than bullshit you. Anyone else that you were curious about on or in regards to Korn Ferry Tour? Because I think there were three. I think it's Kevin Yu, Carl Yuan, and there was somebody else that's a Korn Ferry Tour grad that they didn't have data for. It was like Scott DeBorba, maybe? Yeah. So those were the three that I have seen. There might be a couple others, but those are the three that I have seen that don't have data from the Korn Ferry Tour. I'm actually looking more towards Live this weekend. I actually have a regular P who was in chat earlier. I don't know if he still is, but P is somewhat local. I don't want to dox him, but he's somewhat local to the event, to the Live event. So I am hoping he is still planning on going and gonna give a report back. I have heard that it is a spectacle in person. It's quite different watching in person as it is or from watching it online. I don't do anything with Live. I'm not saying that I like it, don't like it. I just don't. I've put all of my attention into the PGA Tour. It's my main source of content. I'll talk about it, but I don't do anything in regards to analysis. DJ Brooks, like, okay, sure. I can tell you what they did on the PGA Tour, but that doesn't mean anything for Live. P, I'll be at Live for sure. Awesome. I want your book report Monday night. Well, yeah, I'll say Monday. I'll give you Sunday to do your book report, but I am curious to hear how it is. I've heard it's quite a spectacle. Golf is golf, regardless. Been to 20 plus PJ events, excited for something different. Oh man, I am quite jealous of you on that one. I knew you'd been to a few, but I didn't know you were at 20 plus. That's impressive. I might have to meet you at one of these. WAMPO sounds fun. WMPO sounds real fun to go to. I think that's probably going to have to cut it for the show tonight. We've been 30 minutes over. James, I really do appreciate you jumping in chat on Twitch. Drop by anytime. I think my schedule is put in on Twitch, but if you don't have it, it's Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday nights are my DFS show. Sunday and Monday are more research oriented. And then I'm also live on Twitch most every morning, doing anything from research to, what's the word I'm looking for? Critiquing the previous week's performance, all that stuff. And then, in the mornings I'll jump in and play a game occasionally, or do baseball DFS or something. But active on Twitter I am, not as much as somebody probably should be, but go check out my Twitter. I do post research every week. Generally, I try to put it around winners or course based or something like that. So I put something out there this past Monday regarding winners of the Fortinet since the Fortinet or Safeway came to Silverado, which was 2015. So I usually try to put some research information or tips or something out on Twitter. I can't say that I'm active, but I am on the Twitters. Is how I'll say it. But I appreciate that you like the show. Come back anytime. You're always welcome. Questions are always welcome. All that good stuff. Hey, no. There is no such thing as dominating chat. I appreciate people jumping in and asking questions, bouncing ideas off each other. One of my regulars mentioned Matt Wallace, chatter on YouTube. Sometimes throwing names out will remind me to go into things like that. So, James, thanks again for jumping in. I hope to see you again. P, Awaken, thanks for jumping in chat like you all normally do when you're able to catch it. P, have fun at the Live event. I am anxious to hear all about it. In the comments, please let me know, did you like the new format of the rankings and the style, all that stuff? Was it as clear as mud when I went through, and why my rankings are different now? All that good stuff. I really do appreciate you all coming by, watching and listening and supporting the channel. I have fun doing what I do. Hopefully giving you all some good advice in the ways you need to research or things to look at for your research for teams and bets and all that stuff. And I really enjoy the community. It's a whole lot of fun. So for all of the wagers you have made this week for the Fortinet, for all of the DFS contests you've entered this week at the Fortinet, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.